So this is Baruch. This is the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. And as we lived in this day, which is the 34th day of the Omer, in the year 5784, the Jews of Spain, up to the massacres of the year 1391, that is in the count of the Gentiles, the year 1391. So, we have to understand that the situation in which we find ourselves is not new. It happens over and over again in smaller ways and in bigger ways. Now, in the news lately is that the country of Spain has decided to recognize the radical, the politics of the time. Spain has been a tremendously anti-Semitic country for its history. Well, at least the history as we see right now. The countries which most strongly oppose the Jews are usually those countries with a very strong Roman Catholic population. But here in Europe, what's going on in this year is that there's a tremendous number of Muslims now that are in these countries, which is affecting a great deal of their attitudes. Let's look at the Jews of Spain up to the massacres of the year 1391, and Dr. BEINART writes as follows. The Black Death, which reached Aragon in the year 1348, brought with it a wave of murderous attacks on Jews, who were accused of causing the plague. Why not? The Kingdom of Castile underwent a radical decline in population during the second half of the 14th century, not so much as a result of the plague, as of a general increase in mortality and of population migration. The Jews were not held responsible for these factors. Thus, this 1354 attack on the Jews of Seville, which seemed a distant echo of the Black Death, proved to have had a local cause, an accusation of a host desecration. Now, being a Jew, I really don't know what a host desecration is. I guess I could look it up. I guess probably I should. It's going to be back into the discussion again. So if you hold for 1 second, I'm going to go away and look up the phrase host desecration. So I did look it up, and I'm not going to read it to you because it's really complicated. You have to get into all the different rituals of where this and that, the Eucharist, and many different words of how you can mistreat it, can be mistreated. But at any rate, Jews were always often accused of this. Exactly, there is some feeling that there's the live presence of Christ, and in some way in their service that they're not able, that the desecration makes it impossible, or it hurts the live presentation. So, to me, it's really pretty complicated. Maybe I could spend some time to look at it, but I don't think so. The rule of Peter the Cruel from the years 1350 to 1369, he was the king of Castile, was contested by his half-brother, Henry of Trastamara. So that's it, Trastamara. I guess how you would pronounce it today. And during their bitter struggle, many Jewish communities suffered. Henry was the first ruler to use an anti-Jewish line as the basis of his political policy, declaring that he was waging war against his brother in order to free Castilla, from the harmful presence and influence of Peter's Jewish advisors. Toledo was one of the first communities to be affected when in the spring of 1355, some of Henry's forces entered the town, attacking and looting the small Jewish quarter of Alcana. I don't know how to pronounce it. According to the contemporary Spanish historian Pedro López de Ayala, more than 1,000 Jews were killed in Alcana. The attackers were not able to penetrate the larger Jewish quarter of Toledo, which was protected by mercenaries hired by the Jewish community. Other Jewish communities in Castile were also attacked. In 1360, Henry advanced from northern Castile. So that's one of the brothers. Attacking Jewish communities, what they would do is they needed money and food, and they would rob and rape and rob the Jews. And then at Castile, attacking Jewish communities and populations along the way. In April 1366, Henry took the town of Burgos, demanding 1 million maravedis. Apparently there was money was called a maravedi. So it was a maravedis from the Jewish community in ransom money. This is the way it went. In May, when he entered Toledo, he made the same demand of the Jewish community, which had to sell the Torah crowns in order, which were probably made of silver and gold, in order to pay the ransom. A year later, Henry again entered Burgos, forcing the Jews to pay a further ransom of 1 million maravedis. The first rioters were French and English mercenary troops. So let's go back and read it again. The first rioters were French and English mercenary troops, which were enlisted by Peter and Henry in their civil war. They were the ones who were responsible for the destruction of most of the Jewish communities of Castile. When the southern communities were not spared, Peter, the avowed protector of the Jews, allowed the Muslims of Granada, who aided him, to sell the Jews of HAIM into slavery. Now, the whole thing that really tipped the balance was the year 1391, which was 1 year before the year 1491, when the Jews were kicked out of Spain in 1492. The persecutions of 1399 were preceded in 1378 by the confiscation of synagogues in Seville, instigated by the anti-Jewish agitation of the Archdeacon of Écija, Ferrand Martinez. On 4 June 1391, anti-Jewish disorders broke out in Seville, spreading through the other Jewish communities of Andalusia, and subsequently to most of the communities in Spain. Clergy, nobles, townspeople, and peasants all participated in the riots. At the beginning of the July, news of the attacks reached Aragon, causing general agitation. So this was the history there. Let's take a look here, and maybe get down closer on this one. It says this is a little view. It's a view of the interior. We have a drawing. This is a drawing that he's presenting of a synagogue in the Jewish neighborhood of Toledo, founded in the 13th century, in the 1200s. After the riots of 1391, which we just got a little glimpse of, it was converted into Santa Maria la Blanca Church. Now, let's see if we can pivot back up, try to get to this map, how we're going to do this. This is a picture of the Iberian Peninsula, and I think we're a little bit too far, but we kind of need this. We need to sort of get it a little bit closer. Now, the trick over here for me is to relocate my numbers. So there's the number 3. We're getting closer. And that's why I look over here. We'll look at the map. Okay. Now, this is a historical map. Get an idea. In the year 1355, the Jewish quarter in Elkanah was looted. Number 2. In May 1366, and this right now corresponds to the month of May, where we're standing right now. Payment of million maravedis, ransom to Henry. 1376, Henry demands further million under threat of sale of Jews as slaves and confiscation of property. So this is taking place in the city, the great city of Toledo, Spain. Number 3 is up here. Let me bring it down just a little bit. He says, April 13, 1366, ransom of 1 million maravedis is paid to Henry over here in Burgos. Oh, that's the one that's Burgos. Okay, now I got to look around for number 4. Number 4. 1378, in the city of Seville, confiscation of synagogues turned into churches. Number 5. Ferran Martinez agitates for killing Jews. He claimed they influenced statesmen and owned most of the property. Number 6. Back towards Sevilla again. The mob attacks Jewish quarter. Some 4,000 Jews were killed. The rest of them were forced to convert. Riots spread to other parts of the country. These are big cities. But the Jews in smaller towns, what happens to them? Now in the year August 1391, Jewish community of Mallorca. They pronounce it Majorca. I don't really know. I've never there. But there is still a very strong remnant and strong sense of the Jewish presence that was there, because I've met people who came from Familias de Mallorca. So he said, famished Jewish community of Mallorca destroyed. Crown orders island's viceroy to protect Jews. The bailiff of Palma is one of the leaders of the riot. The next one, that's 1391. Now that's the year, really the big year. Everything started to go bad, really bad from there. 1395, community renewed with arrival of 150 families from Portugal. So the Jewish community comes back, as 1395, 1396 were very bad times for Jews in Portugal, as we may see. Number 9, few remaining Jews convert in 1430s. Mallorcan Jewish community ceases to exist. 10, the end of the 14th century, this right here. Beginning of Jewish and converso immigration to the Holy Land. Now we have just one more here, and it's kind of big. Let's see if I can get it in, the whole thing. The Jewish quarter in Toledo. So he says, in the year 1355, looting of Jewish quarter of Alcana. I guess it's a place within Toledo called Alcana, or is this the city? It says in Toledo, so I'm assuming that Alcana is a neighborhood. He said, by Henry Trastamara's soldiers, more than 1,000 Jews are killed. So this gives you an idea. This is the Jewish quarter, Toledo. It's got a little, there was a synagogue here, synagogue there, synagogue there. And then, of course, well, there's a few churches. And even in the Jewish quarter. Well, the Jews will survive Christianity. Here's a picture that apparently was preserved, the capital of one of the pillars of the Toledo synagogue. I guess this is called the capital, which is the little crown on the top of a pillar. This is Baruch Fleischman. We've been listening to Dr. HAIM BEINART. We're looking at the fact of the matter is, and I think that we got this from the song of King David that we heard earlier, the light is still there and we can reach it. But the forces of darkness are coming all the time. We get this name or that name. Right now, God should protect us, should bring His light of His Torah and of His people into the world and make it stronger and stronger. This is the Tikkun Elevator Call, L1 on Baruch Life.